maybe. We already have 5 thumbs up. We haven't even said anything. We already have 5 thumbs up. I like it. And we are officially live.
Awesome.
And it says 9 people. 9 people are waiting. That is so cool. Everyone wants to listen to what you talk about your books.
Yeah, everyone.
I mean, while people are, joining, tuning in, I am here with the fabulous Wendy Tyson, and I have your book right here with your little bio. Do you mind if I read it?
Not at all.
It's very impressive, too. Wendy's background is in law and psychology, which is fascinating to me, and has provided the inspiration for her mysteries and thrillers. So she's not just cozies, everybody. And she's originally from the Philadelphia area. Wendy returned to her roots and lives on a micro farm with her husband, 3 sons, and 3 dogs. She's a contributing editor and columnist for The Big Thrill and The Thrill Begins International Thriller Writers online magazines. You are so impressive.
I don't know about that, but thank you.
I mean, micro farm, not too many people can say they live on a micro farm.
Yeah, we actually, when originally we lived in the Philadelphia area, and we started an urban farm, and then, but on our little third of an acre outside of the city, we pretty much grew enough food to feed our family, and then the neighbors and whoever else wanted some. We've since moved to Vermont, and mostly we've harvested rocks at this point, but we're working on it. We're working on getting there.
This is I am just utterly fascinated by this because I live in the heart of DC. I mean, city girl right now. So tell me more.
Yeah, well, we started, my husband's grandparents were homesteaders in the Pocono area. So he grew up in sort of a farming type of environment his whole life. I, on the other hand, not so much. Grew up in the suburbs of Philadelphia. But I've always had an interest in organic farming and, vegetarian eating, whole foods and whatnot.
I was like, you made good use of that interest. There's a certain Cozy Mystery book series that channels that.
And that's kind of where it comes from. So when the market turned in, I guess around 2007, we decided to start growing our own food, and because organic food was expensive and just made sense. And then we decided to take a step further, and my husband and I started an urban farm. Unfortunately, it didn't ultimately work out for some zoning reasons, but instead now I kind of transferred that farm and the experience we had into the series you're holding.
I was going to say, I think when you said this, I'm like, there's also a zoning issue in the book, so you definitely took what write what you know.
Really coincidence. Wink.
Hey, Fran, Lady Gizmo, Vicky. I love Vicky. Victoria Gilbert. Everyone should be reading her. Jody. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Oh, it's so cute to see. I love seeing everyone's names pop up in the comments. There's a little bit of a delay, so if there's a delay with me saying hello, I still see you and I still appreciate you. I know. So, I mean, you really did take your own life and use it for inspiration, which I am just utterly fascinated about. So, I mean, do you want to tell people about the series?
Sure. So Muddied Murder's the first one. It will be a 6-book series. The 5th book just came out in July, Ripe for Vengeance. And it takes place in a fictional town and the suburbs of Philadelphia, Bucks County. So for anyone out there familiar with Bucks County, Pennsylvania, New Hope, it's sort of think New Hope maybe 20 years ago, 15 or 20 years ago. So fictional town of Winsome. Megan is she's the main character. She's a former environmental lawyer turned organic farmer. She takes over the family's farm when her ne'er-do-well father decides to move to Italy to be with his new girlfriend. And she moves in ostensibly to take care of her 85-year-old grandmother. So it's always a toss-up who's taking care of whom. But so she...
I love BB, by the way. Just throw that out there, BB. Great character. I want her to be my grandmother.
I love BB too. So we have Megan, who is the lawyer turned farmer. Then we have BB, who is kind of her everything, her confidant, her at times her the thorn in her side, her strength. I mean, you name it. The two of them are fabulous together. And then Denver, who is her veterinarian. In the first book, they just get to know each other, and that continues going on. He was inspired by one of my original loves was the James Herriot novels. Growing up, so
I was gonna ask you. So for those of you watching, So I have a list of book boyfriends, and I'm pretty sure this list is getting very extensive. Dr. Denver Finn is officially on the list, y'all. I love him. I printed out his description because this is, I mean, I was thinking of like Jamie Fraser from Outlander. So we have a 6'4" Scottish veterinarian who is just the sweetest human being who has dogs. And at one point he gives her a dog. I was there for this. I mean, he is my new love interest. If she doesn't want him, I'll take him. Like, he was just amazing.
Yeah, I'm in line too. I kind of developed. I don't know. He became Scottish at some point during the first novel. I'm like, where did that come from? But it sort of worked for him. So he is my homage to James Herriot.
I was going to ask you about him. I mean, he is book boyfriend material. I mean, very swoon worthy, and they're just so cute together.
Well, thank you. Considering your knowledge of romance, I appreciate that. I'm not a romance novelist, so I do appreciate.
Well, yeah, I mean, as a romance reader, so again, I read romance genre, and then there's in cozies. There is, I mean, sometimes there are these slow burn romances. I very much appreciated the fact they actually went out on dates and kissed in this book, because sometimes I have to wait like 7 books into a series before they go on a date. So I was very happy with the progression of their relationship. So I'm giving that like a big check plus.
I don't have a lot of patience for love triangles, so.
Well, I mean, you did scare me. There was a moment I ended up really despising a certain character, and I won't give spoilers. And I was like, oh my gosh, is he a potential love interest? Please no, Dr. Finn wins. Don't do this to me. So you did give me a little bit of moment of pause, but only a moment. I appreciated that. And then, Tracy, I love Tracy. I just spoke to her last time, and her book is doing so well out of the picture. I love seeing the tweets pop up about it. Everyone should be reading this book. Oh, Lady, I've never seen that dog emoji. Lady Gizmo has the dog. There are a lot of dogs in this book, and it is amazing. Dr. Finn has 4, and it's great. And then, for anyone to know, did you mention the cute goats?
The goats, yeah, she has goats as well. 2 little piggy
that is I had to Google pygmy goats, and now I want one. I live in an apartment in the city, but I want a pygmy goat.
They're so cute. I keep threatening to bring one home, and my husband's like, nah, he draws the line. Speaking of dogs and goats and everything else, so I should probably let your viewers know that I have 3 of them, including a almost 5-month-old Newfoundland puppy that is currently behaving himself, but I can't guarantee that'll continue.
Oh my gosh. Again, I'm a fellow dog mom, so I fully support. I understand. I also mentioned my little guy might bark at some point, so I appreciate your understanding, y'all.
Bark, so it'll be good.
They can bark together, and her. I'm pretty sure your dogs could use my dog as a chew toy because he's 5 pounds. He's a teacup Maltese.
Oh, I actually think he would be frightened of him, which is.
He's got a big personality, though. I mean, so I can tell you like the big dogs. I had to Google this one. So Polish Tatra sheepdog. I've never heard of this dog before, and I was Googling it. I now want one, and I can't because I have a 5-pound dog. Which does not go well.
No, they're gorgeous. They look like big golden retrievers, or golden retrievers crossed with Great Pyrenees. They're just gorgeous.
I mean, again, I feel like what you do, I made a little note of this. So this book, I honestly feel as if you combine farming, you have baking and cooking, and then you have the animals. Like, you really were able to get a lot of cozy goodness into one book. I mean, so how do you categorize it? Because obviously, I mean, it's called The Muddy Murder, but to me, I was like, animal lovers everywhere should be reading this book, because you were able to get so many different cozy mystery components into it. Was that intentional, or is it just how you wanted to write the book?
I think it's, pun intended, organically out of having an organic farm as a setting. And I love to cook, and my vision for this book was sort of that marriage of the organic farm that then feeds a little small organic cafe. And so Megan not only comes home to take over the failing family farm, but they have an old storefront in the little town of Winsome that used to be like a souvenir shop, like a tourist shop. And she redoes that and makes that into a little organic store and cafe. So I loved that because, I mean, not only do food and cozies go well, and oddly food and murder mysteries, but it provides that community spot so that people can gather, and that's obviously a great vehicle in any mystery.
I also really loved her staff. I thought they were very entertaining. I mean, I love Neil. It was so funny at one point. You're like, all he does is groan, and he actually said something. I could picture that character coming to life. The descriptions were spot on with that. I mean, so I wanted to know if you could tell us a little bit more about Megan. Like, how did you come up with this character? I mean, where did she come from? I mean, because she's so well developed. There's so many levels and dimensions to her. I just wanted to know where she came from.
I wish I could identify sort of a moment where she came together for me as I'm much more of a pantser than a plotter. And she came together for me as I was drafting the first draft. And just to back up, that the idea for the novel wasn't simply kind of born out of the farming. I have another series called the Alison Campbell Mystery Series that is published by the same publisher and is darker. It's more of a kind of traditional mystery / psychological thriller. And I was in a little tiny bookstore in the Smoky Mountains for a book signing for Killer Image, which is the first book in that series. And it was just darling, darling, darling little bookstore. The bookseller was wonderful. The town was adorable. Not one person bought a book. And she had all these wonderful cookies and hors d'oeuvres out. And the townspeople were coming in, and the kids were eating the cookies, and had lots of great conversations. But it was financially sort of a bust. But what I saw was this small town in action. Some of the other storekeepers store owners would leave their kids in the bookstore, and the bookseller was helping to watch them. There was just a lot of community. And I left there, instead of being sort of disappointed in what happened, I left there with this sense of, this is why cozies are magical. And what if I married my farm with this feeling, moved it to what I know, which is Pennsylvania, and like that, the idea came. And once I had the idea for sort of the broader vision, and actually the title came pretty immediately, I just saw Megan in a flash. I thought, someone intelligent who has maybe some tragedy in her life that brings her home, and she has really mixed feelings about that. I like the twist of her being an environmental attorney. I'm an attorney by trade. She starts out being really optimistic. She's going to save the world. And she ends up working for a large firm in Chicago where she's actually defending large companies instead of doing the very thing she thought she would do. Mm-hmm. So I like the twist of bringing her back sort of to the earth and maybe to her, again, unintended roots. And so it just kind of worked. And then, I have a fabulous agent. Shout out to Fran Black at Literary Council. And so when I pitched the idea to her, she loved it. And she's always a fantastic sounding board. So we had a lot of conversations, and just Megan developed out of that.
I kind of love that you had the setting and then the character came later. I mean, again, one of the things with cozies is that the setting is so, so important. And you get a sense of Winsome in this book. I mean, I could picture Main Street. To me, this was like a Hallmark movie set almost, where you can picture it kind of playing out before you. So, I mean, that actually makes sense to me that you had that vision almost because of how well laid out it is.
To me, one of the things that's appealing about a cozy, I mean, certainly characters, but it's the world building. And, I, like many crime authors, started with, Nancy Drew and the Hardy Boys and things like that. But going back to James Herriot, I was an armchair traveler at a very young age, because through those books, and I think I started reading them at like 9 years old, I went to England and I saw firsthand these small towns in a period that I would have never had any exposure to. And so I got a sense really early on of the importance of immersing yourself in a fictional world. And so I think that's what cozies do, and that's what I wanted to do with the series.
I'm trying to find her name. Oh, I didn't want to mispronounce. I want to make sure I grabbed it. So I think you're hitting on something really interesting here, is because you have kind of these homages to other mystery writers and references in the book. I mean, so her Aunt Sarah is a very famous mystery writer, and there's Agatha Christie mentions. So, I mean, is that kind of what inspired those to be integrated into the novel?
A little bit. I mean, I tried to work in a few of my favorite authors. I think Elizabeth George is another one I started reading early on, as mentioned in one of the books. I feel like the crime writing community, maybe in an interesting twist of its own, is an amazing community. I was floored by the generosity of the people within the crime writing community, and so there's an element of sort of just recognizing that.
Is that what inspired you for The Big Thrill and The Thrill Begins? Just the community for the writers?
Honestly, I started for networking, just simply, I wrote in a vacuum. So my very first novel is a book called Running for the Train, and it was a contemporary women's fiction. And it kind of landed me an agent, but the book was never published. My first agent aptly called it my training bra novel, which it was the one that sits on my shelf. Well, after we couldn't publish it, is this, sometimes your first book doesn't come out. Sometimes your second book doesn't come out. Your third book doesn't. And she said to me, why don't you write what you love? And I love mysteries. So, I took a step back and I started kind of writing mysteries at that point. But I think I lost the thread of the question.
Well, I mean, now I'm kind of curious if there was something that that surprised you, or something you learned about writing cozy mysteries when you started this series. Was there something about cozies that surprised you in comparison to other psychological thrillers or other stories that you worked on previously?
That's a really good question. Yes, actually, I think so. I think some people think cozy, and I think I had this misconception too in the beginning, of being sort of fluffy or, about all about a craft or about something like that. Cozies, in some ways, are the biggest challenge of all, because you don't get to use gratuitous violence. You don't get to use gratuitous sex. You have to convey what you want to convey within, obviously there's degrees, right? So there's cozy with an edge, and I would actually call my series more cozy with an edge. But you're challenged to get across all of this within the construct of not having that on the page. And that's what Agatha Christie did so well, right? I mean, that's a challenge. And then within that, you can still look at deep issues. I mean, you can still think about land use, development, alcoholism, PTSD. I mean, my books have all of these issues entwined just within that construct. So yes, I think that surprised me. There's a puzzle there, and that's the basis.
I mean, you hit on something I was actually going to mention later, is that your cozy is a little bit darker. So maybe that is your psychological thriller background coming into play, because again, you did have a character who was dealing with PTSD and alcoholism, and she herself, she lost her husband. I mean, so she's dealing with her own trauma. And then we had a very apt description of a certain person's head being bashed in. That was not, you didn't hold back with that. Yeah. And there's also a flashback scene when our main character is a child that was really traumatic. I won't give this away for y'all, but I kind of was going, oh my gosh, where did this come from? So, I mean, how did you kind of integrate that into the cozy mystery genre? Because you are a cozy, but again, it does have that edge to it.
Yeah, I mean, I've had a couple of reviewers say, is it cozy? Is it traditional mystery? Is it, traditional within this cozy setting? Mm-hmm. I would say that it probably does straddle that line a little bit, just for some of the reasons that you talked about. But I'm not sure, when you take violence off the page, when you take graphic sex off the page, I don't think that means that you're left with, I think that you can still examine issues or have, this is the real world, right? I mean, these are contemporary issues. So I try not to dwell there, and I try to use humor and always have sort of a hopeful message with the books, but those things are definitely there. I have a background in psychology, and I worked with kids who were adjudicated dependent and delinquent for a while during graduate school. And I think it had a big kind of impact on my writing, not so much the series, more the Alison Campbell series, but it's there.
Yeah. And Fran is thanking you, and I believe Vicky said LOL about something we previously said. Again, there's always a delay. I'm like, I know she didn't say LOL about this. There's always a delay when you do YouTube and then the comments pop up. But yeah, please comment if you guys have questions. I mean, please jump right on in. I mean, to me, it's interesting though too, because you really do have a balance of, you have the small town. I mean, you have the small town mystery going on where you have the small town politics, you have someone on the historical board, you have zoning issues going on, and then you have the small business, then you have the characters. So, I mean, then you have the love interest. I mean, you have a lot going on. And there's almost 3 mysteries, I want to say, in the book, in addition to the main mystery. So how did you kind of strike that balance? Because you had all these moving pieces and elements.
Yeah, again, I'm not a plotter, but what I do when I'm writing, and if this is, I'm going to go to sort of how I write, and hopefully that answers the question. So I start with a concept, sometimes a title, a character, and then I start writing. And then if I get some ideas for moving ahead, I'll jot those notes down at the title page of the book, or I'll make brackets within the book itself. And so as I'm writing, the first layer might be a little bit more linear, but then I'll get ideas, I'll go back to bracketed areas, rewrite it, flesh it out. And then after I write a first draft, especially for A Muddied Murder, I went back and sort of did a very high level outline to make sure it all wove together seamlessly and that I wasn't missing any, elements. It's just, I'm a kind of a binge writer. And so when I'm in the book, I'm in the book, and all the patterns and everything becomes very big.
And Vicky, well, murder is pretty serious. So I think a little edge to cozies is just fine. Here, that needs to be a quote over on Twitter. Just that. And then Lady Gizmo, wow, there's a lot going on there. Very well thought out. I mean, it's true. I'm kind of curious now if you, of all the books that you've written, if there's one that really stands out to your favorite book that you've completed, whether it's published or not.
That's a great question. I'm getting a little bit of an echo. I don't know why. Do you hear that?
I don't know. You froze for a second. Maybe that was where the echo came in.
All right. So, yeah. Hold on one second, okay?
Hopefully we don't have any tech issues, y'all. Fingers crossed. I mean, but if you guys have any questions, please comment. We have mine, but I want to know what you guys are asking or want to have asked as well.
Sorry. Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
Oh, no. Books that you've written.
She's on this side a little bit.
Of all the books that you've written, do you have one that's especially close to your heart that really jumps out at you as your favorite? And I was kind of curious, if so, why?
So, no, I don't really have one. A Muddied Murder I love because I just love the characters. I look forward to writing the books in those series. I feel like I'm going home. And that was my sort of to those characters. So, Killing Women with that novels. Are you okay on that?
All of a sudden, you started. I don't know, guys, in the comment section, if you can tell us what's going on, because on my end, all of a sudden, you started pausing, and I was getting broken, but kind of a broken response. I'm just checking. Maybe.
I'll keep going. Way out.
I don't know. No one's commenting, so I don't know if it's coming through on their end or not.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm rural Vermont. Sometimes the internet gets a little wonky.
Okay, so you are echoing a little bit.
Okay.
I don't know how to stop the echoing. This is something that happens every so often with YouTube and technology. My goodness.
Yeah, it's weird because it's fine in the beginning. All right. Well, I'll keep going.
Okay, I mean, if it gets too bad, y'all, if it gets too bad in the comment section, please tell us, because maybe we can always, you can X out and then come back. I can always add you right back.
Yeah.
You can try that.
Do you want to try that?
Sure. And then in the meantime, y'all can be asking your questions in the comment box while we figure this out.
Okay. So I leave. I'm going to leave you.
I think you can leave it, and then I'll add you right back in, hopefully. Okay, hopefully all this gets fixed, y'all. I mean, hopefully this does not become a thing. We can get this worked out. Yes, Nicole is my best friend in the world who picked this book. She's awesome. She is the one who figured out how StreamYard works. She is the one who found, Google Hangouts, got rid of it with YouTube, and this has become a problem. So hopefully this is not going to become a reoccurring. Oh, is she going to be able to add back in? Let's see. Yes, she's coming right back. There she is.
All right. Hopefully that's better.
Any better? Yes. Fingers crossed.
All right. I think it's a little better.
Okay, you were echoing there.
All right. And then I have in January called Dark Homage. It is a book that is much darker. It's very much, and that also is probably one of my favorite books. So it's being released by Down and Out Book in January. My favorite.
The upcoming book that I haven't been able to read. Unfortunately, I needed to leave them. But let me ask Wendy, what are her future plans for books? Already contracted and planned books. So she wants to know what's going on in the future.
Sure. I have the book of the series that will be coming out next year. Have a Dark Homage, which comes out in January. I am working on a standalone psychological thriller that is about people who have done. I'm also working on a whole new series, a concept for a whole new series that I'm really, really excited about.
You have a lot going on. What is your daily routine? What is your writing life? That is, usually people say they have, an ongoing series. Like, I have this and I have that. How do you keep that clear in your head?
I think writing is my downtime, so I have to do it. I write every morning for about an hour to 2 hours, and I try to write on the weekends. I'm a binge writer, so if I'm on vacation or something, I'll write. How many days I can. Just any chance I get time, and I have to really any opportunity I have.
When you say you binge write, do you end up just writing until you can't write anymore? Or when you say you write in the morning, do you have a word count goal or a page count goal, or do you just write until there's nothing else to write?
I just write until I run out. So if I get up at 5 and I want to start work at 7:30, I will write. When I say sometimes I will just write. If I can, I'll take time off and write like 16 hours a day for 2 weeks and try and plow through, as much of a draft as I can. I do that when I'm really, again, a lot of these threads are in my head, and I just to get them on paper. And that's the way of getting that draft out there.
I just got this visual of you with your coffee pot going for the 16-hour day. That is incredible. Again, you have the dogs, you have family, you have things going on, and that's incredible. That's amazing.
Do you remember Despicable Me? With the dad with Mean Minion? When I'm doing binge writing, my children call me Minion Mommy or Mommy Minion. So I don't do them as much anymore because it is a little disruptive. So I'm trying to about like 2 hours a day instead.
And then Lady Gizmo is saying, that is awesome. Congratulations with all your projects.
Thank you.
And then Fran's so cute. Literary Council, shout out. I spoke with Wendy before coffee in the morning. Your character, she woke up at 4 or 5, and then you're saying you read at 5 o'clock. I am seeing a pattern. And saying good night. I'm so glad you were able to join us. Everyone should be reading Victoria Gilbert. A Murder for the Books is awesome. It's one of my favorite reads of the year. Thanks. And then, 16-hour days. Even Lady Gizmo was like, wait a second. She's like, do you fuel up with coffee? How do you get prepared to just do a 16-hour writing day? That is a great question.
A lot of it is a mind thing. I think I have to be in that frame of mind, and I like know that I'm going. It's again going to law school. I think helped because there's nothing like cramming to the bar. So you just kind of get back into that mode. Only it's writing. I know that the beauty of it is when you're in that mode, your inner critic is silent because you have no choice. So I know whatever I write is going to need copious amounts of editing, and that's okay. It's just getting those initial threads, on the page.
I like that perspective because then you're not sucking yourself out before you go to the blank page, which is something I think a lot of people struggle with.
I think so. I'm a big fan of Natalie Goldberger. Are you familiar with her work?
That sounds so familiar. Why? I'm
like writing on the bones.
Yes.
She's an artist and author, but she writes this wonderful series about writing, and it's about really this like raw mind, which is just pen to paper, and you keep writing, and there's a connection there. And sometimes I do use pen and paper instead of my computer, even. But there's a connection. Get to the heart of what you're trying to say. And I think sometimes for writers, we get so wrapped up in wanting what you say to be perfect instead of saying what we want, and that process allows that to happen a little bit.
You just gave me kind of what is it, Julia Cameron of the morning pages, those thoughts out and then go to your writing process, almost kind of get it all out of your system before, purge those critical thoughts and move forward, get them all done.
Process, I think. When I was just starting out, I was a short story writer to begin with, and I still enjoy writing short stories. And you
froze for a second. I'm like, please, technology work.
When I was just starting out, I graduated from law school. I was working for a large law firm. And my agent has heard this story before, but I really wanted to write a novel. And my husband is an engineer, and he's extraordinarily mad and he has a great vision. And one day I was really upset. I was going back to work, and I said, I just want to be a writer. I want to write a novel. And he looked at me, he just said, then write. Like, what's And it was a wake up for me, as angry as I was at him at that moment, that, okay, I managed to watch television, I managed to hang out with my friends, I managed to talk on the telephone. Why can't I find an hour a day? And so he challenged me. I started getting up at 4 a.m, and after a novel. I say that to all authors out there, like, where there is a will, there is a way. You might be exhausted, but I came to love those morning writing sessions because I had my dog at the time would always come downstairs with me and lay my Labrador Molly. She would lay at my feet, and that I didn't have to take hours just with my time. And at the end of the year, I had a novel.
That is so amazing and so encouraging. I mean, I'm going to be quoting you over on Twitter. I'm making an image with this where there's a will, there's a way. Like Wendy made like example over here. This is happening. I mean, Tracy has a question for you though. Okay. When you do those writing marathons, special place you go to write, or do you write at home? I mean, yeah, I'm curious about this too. Do you have a special? I mean, my back would be hurting. Do you have a special chair? I mean, where are you writing these 16 hours?
Normally at home, I try to sequester myself as much as possible. So I'll go, either my husband will take the family out somewhere, or I'll just stairs somewhere by myself. I move around, so I don't necessarily write from the same place. Sometimes I'll go to a local coffee shop or a bookstore or library for a couple of hours just to have a change of scenery.
I was going to say just a few hours, just a few hours, and then you'll go right back home. I mean, that's a lot of writing.
And to be clear, it's not like I'm necessarily that productive for 16 hours. It's just I know that's all I'm doing that day. It's all the book. And so, it might be a break to check the internet. I try to turn, when I'm doing this, I try to turn the internet, off. I'll come back on. I'll go have a drink. Sometimes I'll go for a walk or bring a notebook just to give myself a change of scenery, but it's just a submersive experience. Probably not and then people like Nano or listen.
Oh, NaNoWriMo. Are you going to be doing that this November?
No. No.
I was going to say NaNoWriMo kind of sounds like your life. When you said the 2 weeks, I'm like, you're beating NaNoWriMo. You could do 2 novels during the time NaNoWriMo's going. I mean, that'd be a very busy 4 weeks, but you could do it. I'm kind of curious. I mean, so did this evolve from the husband saying, write your book from the 1 hours? I mean, how did you kind of figure out what works for you? Because I mean, it worked. It's made you successful. Like your process works for you.
Yeah. I think some of it is the law school experience. Just in law school, at least where I'm probably you have an exam in the semester. And so you have to, you learn throughout the semester, and then you have a lot of studying to do for the period right before that exam. Everything there on the page at that point. So for me, I think I just did do well under that sort of situation. And I realized that I'm started having deadlines. So I need that sort of structure. Now, I don't do it all the time. So I might do it a couple times a year, just to either challenge myself or because I know I have a looming deadline and I want to get a full draft on the page so I can really start to work with it and edit it down. So it's just been a process. I mean, I've been writing for a long time. Everyone finds their process, I think.
I mean, I now want to try this. Be like, okay, I need to mark 2 weeks off on the calendar, see what happens.
Start with 2 weeks.
It was like Wendy Tyson challenge.
Nice.
Hashtag Wendy Tyson writes. Yeah, I mean, even Tracy's like, it's so interesting. It is. I don't actually know if I've actually. That was not eloquent. I don't know if I've actually heard anyone say binge writing before. That's kind of sound. I mean, always it's been. I mean, Netflix is your binge watching. Like shows what I binge, but I don't think I've actually ever heard anyone say binge writing.
Yeah, it's not for everyone. I met one person on a panel in International Thriller Writers who writes in a similar way. She takes 12 weeks off and writes her first draft, and I cannot remember who the author was, but so unfortunately. But I thought, there's somebody else who does that.
They exist.
Exactly.
I mean, this is kind of a perfect segue of one of the things I love to do is either or questions. And one of my categories is writing either or questions. So would you like to do the writing either or?
Sure.
We'll see how this goes. So might already answered this question. Morning or night writer?
Morning.
Tea or coffee?
Coffee. Coffee in the morning, tea in the afternoon.
Laptop or pen and paper?
Mostly laptop.
Do you prefer pen or pencil?
Pen.
Black pen or blue pen?
No preference? We'll say black pen.
And then, yes, Lady Gizmo, I'm going to be doing a video at some point of the Wendy Tyson challenge. This is now a thing. Do you use a Scrivener?
No.
No to both?
I only heard do you use Scrivener something?
Word or Scrivener?
Word.
And then you said coffee, but is it hot coffee or iced coffee?
Hot in the morning, iced in the afternoon if I have it.
Black coffee or sugar and cream coffee?
Black.
How do you do that? I think there's going to be like more than one Wendy Tyson challenge going. And then we've already answered this. I was going to ask you if you were a pantser or plotter, but you're a pantser.
I'm very much a pantser.
Mac or HP?
Mac.
And then you already answered one of the other questions of what comes first, characters or plot. But I'm kind of curious, is it the same for all of your stories? Is it always kind of the setting first? I mean.
No, it's not. It's something first. So I have something. I have a concept, and then a character comes next, or I'll have the book that I'm writing. What the psychological was all kind of the entire concept came off of a vision of a small red house in New Mexico. So, and it spawned the entire kind of storyline. So sometimes it's an image. So I keep an image library. When I see something, and I have this almost obsession with abandoned buildings. When I see something that's interesting, I take a photo and I keep a library of those images, and then oftentimes they'll inspire a book. So in Bitter Harvest, the series, it opens with Megan on a hiking trail, and she comes across an Adirondack chair sitting on the trail and realizes it's facing her house. Who has been spying on her. And the opening of that book was inspired by a hike I took in Vermont when my son and I were hiking on an Adirondack chair. Now it was facing a beautiful view, and so someone must have done the hike often enough to want to repeat it. But I took a picture because it was so out of place. So contrast. And what am I going to do with that? And then when I was writing Bitter Harvest, it came to me, and I put it in the book. So
I mean, I have to ask, how are you storing this library? Are they all printed out? Do you have a folder on your computer? Is this, a wall you have in your house?
No, just on my computer. And so I just keep a folder. And sometimes if I'm like writing a short story or a book, like when I was thinking about that little red house, we were in New Mexico, and I took a picture of the image, and I put it as my wallpaper on my computer until it spoke to me. And then once it kind of told me what it was, then I was like, okay. So
I kind of love that you kept it there until, you probably looked at it how many times, and all of a sudden you had that epiphany moment. I mean, that's great.
Well, you're right. I think writing happens not writing, right? When you're daydreaming, when you're driving, when you're showering, when you're doing the laundry, when you're doing mundane tasks. It's an activity that is both front of mind, back of mind. Sometimes if you're trying to get through a breakthrough scene, or you're just struggling with a plot line, I find that not reminders can be helpful. And then sometimes it just your brain processes patterns and it comes to the forefront.
I was going to say your Agatha Christie love is shining through, because she has that quote, "It's time to plot a novel when you're doing the dishes." I was like, I can see the connection between you two.
That's right.
And then Lady Gizmo wants to know if you have a vision board, because it does sound as if you are visual when it comes to getting your inspiration and then putting the words on the page.
That's a great idea. I do not, but I think probably my computer folder that I have.
I was going to say, you have a digital vision board.
I like that idea.
I was going to say, this works. I'm like, this is perfect for you. And then I'm kind of curious, this was one of my other questions, write in total silence or with background music. This is something I'm kind of curious about.
Yeah, either. Sometimes if I have background music, something very specific, and I'll listen to the same song over and over again. When I wrote Seeds of Revenge, I think it was Seeds of Revenge, I had Mrs. Potter's Lullaby playing over and over and over again. I probably played it like 100 times a day, and it just was my background noise. Other times it's been classical music or something, but I'm okay with silence.
Sorry, ladies, I've got to go. Talk soon. Oh, bye, Fran. Thank you for joining us. And she's the reason why we met. So big shout out. I was like, you introduced me to a certain.
By the way, I love your videos. This is great.
Oh. I was going to say, Fran, because I'm like, Fran introduced me to you. He's my new book boyfriend. Like, it works. Like, we have a domino effect over here. You're so sweet. I'm like, I'm keeping her. I'm like, I have all the other books I got to go read now too. And I have a couple other questions for you. Handwritten edits or edits on the computer?
Both.
Special writing or just anything that's handy?
Special. Sorry, I didn't.
Do you have a special writing mug? Some people only have one coffee mug. That's their good luck charm.
Anything that's handy.
Do you save it to the cloud or to a thumb drive? How do you back up your stories?
If I tell you, it'll be an embarrassment to me. I put I do have a cloud, and I email it to myself. I email, like, every once in a while. I'll email paranoid that I'm.
That is not embarrassing. I do that all the time, and I love the way you phrase that because now I have a complex. I do that all the time with my dissertation. I'm pretty sure, and I send it to email accounts too. I have a few different email addresses. I have my university one. I have my Writer at Heart one. I would send it to all of them.
At the end, so that, yeah, I do the exact same thing.
And then, does anyone else have any other questions? I mean, I was like, you're so great. I'm like, I kind of want to keep you. I was like, you answered all my either/or questions.
They were fun.
Oh, thank you. I was going to say, before you went to that, I was going to ask you, I had categories. I had either the food related or the dessert ones too. You choose, but it was a perfect, dovetail moment with the talking about the writing process.
And again, I don't recommend it. I think it's, but for some people it may work. They get to submerge themselves in what they're working on and work through it, because that's the thing going into it. You have to realize that the product coming out is going to need a lot of work.
So how do you edit? Do you do it will you go through and just reread it? Will you go like line by line edit? Will you do an overview edit? How do you approach your revision process?
I edit a lot. I probably go through, 6 to 12 edits of the novel when I'm done. But my first edit is good. And then if I have major plot issues, I put notes to myself in brackets. So I do that while I'm writing too. So I know. So, for example, someone in a bar, and then that murder should have taken place in the woods. I don't go back and change it. I keep going forward, but I put a bracket that says no murders. Keeps the momentum going. Allow you to search your document really easily. So I know at the end of the first draft to go back and find every bracket, and make a list of what I need.
Interesting.
And then I kind of do a couple of read-throughs and edits. Mm-hmm. I'll print it out. I do this less now. And I'll edit by. And then the final version I read aloud because I want to hear how it sounds. And then when I'm done, when I if that makes sense. When you're not,
I'm kind of curious because you plant the little clue nuggets. That's how I always refer to them, the little nuggets along the way, so that you can hopefully solve the mystery or feel as you have a chance with your clues. So do you go back and plant those during the editing process? Because you do have some clues planted along the way, which I think is probably going to be very difficult to do if you're a pantster. So I'm curious if the clues kind of come later in your process for you.
Sometimes sometimes I go back and as I'm reading, I realize I need something there, and I'll put it in a later version. So it depends.
You need to write a book on your own writing process. You need to do your own little this is how I write book. Amazon
will follow it. No one.
But still, everyone is so different. I think you're hitting something so important is people try and conform to what they think a writer should do versus what they think should be doing. So I think you're a perfect example of stay motivated, stay inspired. Oh no, did I lose you? Is she frozen on your end or am I frozen? What's going on? No. All of a sudden I lost her, y'all. Oh, there you are. You're back.
I was just going to say I do a lot of interviews for international thriller writers. And one of the questions I often ask the people that I'm interviewing, what's your process? All so different. Everybody, I think we all start out thinking, like you said, we're supposed to do X, A, B, and C. And then we We need structure.
No. I was losing you for a second. I was like, she's freezing. Like, don't freeze on me. I was like, technology, we're doing well. But I mean, I'm kind of, so if anyone has any questions, type them in now. But is there anything else you expected me to ask, or you want to talk about or touch? I mean, you do have the new book coming out in January.
I do. So Dark Homage comes out in January. January 20th. So if you like darker fiction, darker mysteries, you'll pick that up. And then at the 6th.
Oh no! Come on.
Do we lose each other again?
I lost you for a second. All of a sudden, you froze. I'm like, oh, we were doing so well up until the last couple of minutes.
The 6th book in the Greenhouse series comes out next October.
I have to wait a whole year? See, me and Dr. Finn, I'm going to have to be waiting this long time fresh. I'm officially in a relationship with him. He's not a passing infatuation. Apparently, I got to wait for my love of him. Is he at least in this book? Will you at least promise me that?
I promise.
Okay.
Yeah, all of the books.
I was about to be very sad if my 6'4" Scottish veterinarian was no longer. I was like, you cannot pick him either. I will be devastated.
No, he will be there.
Okay. I mean, I'm saying that, like, you are the author, you are the creator, you are the god of the series. And like, if you kill him, I'm gonna be upset.
No animals and no Dr. Finn.
Oh no, we cannot kill the animals. This book is so animal friendly. I want Sadie the dog. She's mine. I want a pygmy goat. I mean, okay, this was one of my favorite things about reading your book. Again, this random detail. I loved the names of the animals. My favorite thing to be on the lookout for was names for the animals, because I never saw any of them coming. You had a chicken named Omelet, and then you had Dimples the goat, and then you had Muffin Chops the cat, and then you had Gunther, who was a puppy. I was loving the names of the animals.
My son named Omelet.
Did you?
Yeah.
Give him a shout out, because I was going to say I was very happy with that one. So I love this. Was like a very random side note of a detail in the book I was loving and for was every time an animal was introduced, I wanted to know what its name was.
And all the chickens, it's like all live there. There's no early end.
Oh. No. Did I lose you? Ah. Oh, thank you for joining us. And yes, please read your book. And then Tracy, out of the picture, everyone needs to be reading Tracy. That is an amazing book. And I need to know what's coming in book 2. I was like, I just saw the comments. And you're back. Thank goodness. Was there anything else you wanted to touch on before technology cuts you off and we won't be able to talk again?
Now, only just one quick thing on animals. In book 5, Right for Vengeance, there's another animal introduced.
Oh my god! I was like, this is the only way I get to experience pygmy goats. So I was like, please bring on the animal love. It's very old McDonald. You get all the animals on the farm. It's great.
Yeah, without the you get to live. No, this has been so much for having me.
Thank you so much for joining me. I'm so thankful to Fran for putting Hutch Literary Council. You have a great writer on your hands. I'm like, you got to keep her. And I have a new book boyfriend. So thank you for writing my new love interest. He might be fiction. I adore him. He's great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for talking to me. And thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate you tuning in. So I will talk to you guys later.
All right.
Bye.